The Outermost House, A Year of Life on the Great Beach of Cape Cod by Henry Beston. Chapter 6 Lanterns on the Beach. Section 1. It is now the middle of March. Cold winds stream between earth and the serene assurance of the sun. Winter retreats, and for a little season, the whole vast world here seems as empty as a shell. Winter is no mere negation, no mere absence of summer. It is another and a positive presence. And between its ebbing and the slow, cautious inflow of our northern spring, there is the face of earth's emptiness, half real, perhaps, and half subjective. A day of rain, another bright week, and all earth will be filled with the tremor and the thrust of the year's new energies. There has just been a great wreck, the fifth this winter and the worst. On Monday morning last, shortly after 5 o'clock, the big three-masted schooner Montclair stranded at Orleans and went to pieces in an hour, drowning 5 of her crew. It had blown hard all Sunday night, building up enormous seas. Monday's dawn, however, was not stormy, only wintry and gray. The Montclair, on her way from Halifax to New York, had had a hard passage, and sunrise found her off Orleans with her rigging iced up and her crew dog-weary. Helpless and unmanageable, she swung inshore and presently struck far out and began to break up, lifted, rocked, and pounded by the morning's mountainous seas. Her mast was seen to quiver at each crash, and presently her foremast and her mainmast worked free and scissoring grotesquely back and forth across each other, split the forward 2/3 of the vessel lengthwise, levered the ship open, as Russell Taylor of Norset said. The vessel burst. The 2 forward masses of the ship drifted inshore and apart. A cargo of new laths poured into the seas from the broken belly of the hold. 7 men clung to the rocking, drifting mass that was once the stern. It was a singular fragment, for the vessel had broken as neatly crosswise as it had lengthwise, and the seas were washing in below deck as into an open barrel. Dragging over the shoal ground, the mass rocked on its keel, now rolling the men sickeningly high, now tumbling them down into the trampling rush of the seas. The fall of the 2 forward masts had snapped off the mizzen some 25 feet above the deck, and from the stump crashed out slivers swung free with the rolling. Bruised, wet through, and chilled to the bone, the unfortunate men dared not lash themselves down, for they had to be free to climb the tilted deck when the ship careened. 5 clung to the skylight of the after-deck house, 2 to the stern rail balustrade. Laths filled the sea, poured over the men, and formed a jagged and fantastic wall along the beach. One great sea drowned all the 5. Men on the beach saw it coming and shouted. The men on the deck house shouted and were heard, and then the wave broke, hiding the tragic fragment in a sluice of foam and wreckage. When this had poured away, the men on the after house were gone. A head was visible for a minute, and then another drifting southward, and then there was nothing but sea. 2 men still clung to the balustrade, one a 17-year-old boy, the other a stocky, husky-built sailor. The wave tore the boy from the balustrade, but the stocky man reached out, caught him, and held on. The tide rising, the stern began to approach the beach. A detail of men hurriedly sent over from Nauset Station now appeared on the beach and managed to reach and rescue the survivors. The Montclair had chanced to strand near a station classified as inactive. That is, Coast Guard stations are discontinued if there is not enough work to justify their maintenance, and the 2 or 3 men who garrisoned the station could do little but summon instant aid. Men came from Nauset, circling the East Ham Lagoon and Orleans Cove in local automobiles, but the whole primitive tragedy was over in a moment of time. As the vessel was breaking up, men came to the beach and helped themselves to the laths and what wreckage they fancied. Later on, there was a kind of an auction of the salvaged material. The other day, I saw half a dozen bundles of the Montclair's laths piled up near a barn. A week after the wreck, a man walking the Orleans shore came to a lonely place, and there he saw ahead of him a hand thrust up out of the great sands. Beneath, he found the buried body of one of the Montclair's crew. I can see the broken mast of the schooner from the deck of the forecastle. Sunday last, I walked over to the ship. The space under the after-deck house from which the men were swept, officers' quarters, I imagine, is an indescribable flung mass of the laths, torn wood, wrecked paneling, sopped blankets, and sailors' clothing. I remember the poor, stringy cheap ties. In the midst of the debris, a stain of soppy pink paper caught my eye. It was a booklet titled, "If You Were Born in February." I have often seen the set of 12 on newsstands. The scarlet cover of this copy had seeped into the musty pages. "Those who are born in the month," I read, "have a particular affection for home. And again, they will go through fire and water for their loved ones." Who brought this thing aboard, one wonders? Whose curious hands first opened it in the lamplight of this tragic and disordered space? The 17-year-old boy is dead of the shock and exposure. The stocky, husky-built man, the only survivor, is going on with the sea. "He says it's all he knows," said a Coast Guardsman. The wreck lies on the edge of the surf and trembles when the incoming seas strike its counter and burst there with a great upflinging of the heavy spray.